welcome to Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, where later today the 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will meet in what will be a very critical game for both teams. Tampa Bay comes in with a 4-4 record. No, or are they 4-5? I should have known that, 4-5. And the 49ers, of course, are 4-4. And so with the Falcons leading the South, with the Arizona Cardinals leading the West, both of these teams can't fall too far behind in their division races, because with this year, with the NFC North, and heck, even a couple teams in the NFC East, a wild card berth is certainly not a given for any team coming out of the West or the South. In fact, right now I'd say the odds are definitely against it. So just to bring you up to date on the happenings with the 49ers on Saturday as I was traveling to Tampa Bay, the 49ers did in fact activate Christian McCaffrey off the injured reserve list, and they also elevated Tashaun Gipson from the practice squad. So the veteran safety is back with the 49ers after serving a 6-game suspension for violating the league's PED policy. He had originally signed with Jacksonville in the offseason, and Jacksonville, when he served his suspension and they had the commissioner's exempt list available for him, Jacksonville decided, as I got my copy, Jacksonville decided that he didn't really have a spot on their team, so they released him. The 49ers signed him almost immediately to place on their practice squad, and now he is elevated. So what does that mean for Malik Mustafa? I think Mustafa is going to be available in this game. The inactives will be announced in about an hour or so, and typically with a guy like Mustafa, he sustained some sort of calf injury during Thursday's practice, and so he was limited on Thursday, but then Friday he was back out there for a limited practice as well. So that is typically a good sign whenever a player returns to practice in some form the day after. Thank you all for watching this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, comment, like, all that. We'll keep this thing going. So yeah, thank you to everybody who's tuning in right now. And there's a question right there. Is Osa playing? I believe he is, unless there's something that crops up late here. But again, he practiced during the week. I know he was a little bit iffy later in the week with that hip injury, an injury sustained early in Wednesday's practice, but it looks like he should be able to go. The other roster move was that in order for the 49ers to create a roster space for Christian McCaffrey, they waived their 4th running back, Patrick Taylor Jr., and so 49ers are at the 53-player roster limit right now, and they still have Yetur Gross-Matos, who won't play in this game, and John Feliciano, who won't play in this game. Those guys are out there as far as on injured reserve, so for them to come back, 49ers will have to create more roster spots for those guys. Going back to Gipson, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he sees some action in this game at safety. He's familiar with the system. Obviously, he was a starter at free safety the past 2 seasons for the 49ers, and nothing has really changed other than the fact that there is a new defensive coordinator for the 49ers, with Nick Sorensen being in his first year. But the terminology, the defense, all the assignments, none of that changes. So therefore, it would be a pretty easy fix for Gipson to get back out there and kind of resume his old role with the 49ers defense. And we'll see how this whole thing plays out if Mustafa isn't able to go, or if he is limited through the course of this game. My guess is it would be Tashaun Gipson taking over at that safety position next to Jair Brown. So the 49ers have to have 6 players inactive for this game because they brought up 1 player, Gipson, from the practice squad. So we'll keep an eye on that. I said in about, it's 90 minutes before kickoff. So regardless of when you're watching this, you can do the math. 90 minutes before kickoff is when the inactives have to be out there. If you have any other questions, let's just feel free to chime in. There's Todd Ryder. If the 49ers lose today, they need to lose for the Boise State running back. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think the 49ers running game is just fine. Number 2 in the league. It's that guy, a really good player, obviously, but they just selected a running back in the 3rd round. They like Isaac Guerendo. Obviously, they like Christian McCaffrey, and they like Jordan Mason. So I think probably running back is about the least of the play positions that they would address in this upcoming draft. You know, obviously a lot down the line, and the story of this season obviously hasn't been written. But if I were to just go ahead and look ahead to the draft, I would say, and the question is Feliciano. Feliciano's not playing. John Feliciano was declared inactive. He remains on injured reserve for another week. And even if Feliciano were in uniform, he would be the backup center, backup guard. No one is taking any spots away from the starters right now. In fact, I don't know if you saw this, but you know, I sometimes cite PFF when it comes to offensive line, and I do that because they're the only organization that even attempts to like grade offensive linemen using the same scale across the league. And out of the NFC West, 4 of the 49ers' 5 offensive linemen were ranked as the number 1 at their positions in the division. Mason is a free agent, but he's a restricted free agent. So all the 49ers would have to do would be to tender him at a fairly low figure, and I wouldn't think that he'd be going anywhere. So yeah, Jordan Mason, this is his 3rd year in the NFL, doesn't have a contract for next year, but like I said, he'd be in the same position that Juwan Jennings was in last year. Papa comes in with, can't wait to see what Khalil Davis does today. Khalil Davis, one of the few players in NFL history who has a chance to play an 18-game regular season. Already played 9 games with the Houston Texans. His bye week was coming up, but he goes to the 49ers, who were on their bye week last week. And so Khalil Davis, I would expect Khalil Davis. I think he'll be active. By the way, you know, it's not super warm right now, although I'm kind of in the shade, but in the sun, it does heat up pretty good. It's supposed to be, the temps are supposed to be around 85 degrees for this game. There is a significant amount of humidity. And so I would think that the 49ers would have all of their defensive linemen active for this game to have some sort of rotation going. So look for Khalil Davis to play, whatever, 15 snaps in this game. That sounds about right, doesn't it? 49ers are going to keep those bodies rotating in and healthy. And going back to the draft, the question about the Boise running back, I would think that offensive line and defensive lines, specifically pass rusher, edge rusher, would be positions that would be first and foremost for the 49ers to address. Does it feel like the season is highly in jeopardy if they lose this one? Absolutely it does. Yeah, and I'll tell you 2 reasons why it would feel like it'd be in jeopardy. One would be if the 49ers lose, they fall to 4-5 on the season. So there's that, just the record part of it. But also, if they lose this game, it tells you what kind of team they are. I think it tells you that they're not a playoff team. If they lose this game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, how can you then expect them to go on the road and be competitive against the Green Bay Packers, against the Buffalo Bills, and then at home later in the season against the Detroit Lions? Now, I realize the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the only team to have beaten the Detroit Lions this season, but this is a game the 49ers should win. Tampa Bay on a short week, the 49ers coming off the bye. So absolutely, I think that their season, their postseason would be in jeopardy if they lose this game. Let's see here. Chase Young. I think Chase Young did play in 18 games last year. I think I hope I said one of the few guys. I think there are 5 players this year due to all the activity at the trading deadline. There are 5 players this year that have an opportunity to play in 18 games, and so Khalil Davis is one of those guys. All right, so there you have it. kind of a report from the field. 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No one's out of here yet. I don't think anyone's out here really warming up yet. Some kickers are out there. Looks like Tampa's kicker. Way out there, barefoot, kind of lining things up. But yeah, the 49ers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, big game, obviously, for the 49ers as they look to start the second half of the season out on a good track. They've had a lot of success in the second halves of these seasons. Over the last 3 years, they've gone 23-4, and now that the band is the band is on the field, everybody. The band is on the field, and so this is probably a good time for me to X out of here and say thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and then check in after the game. I'll have a Zoom up, and of course, watch 49ers pregame live.